If you've been paying attention to the conversation around FBC Firebreak, there's a good chance you know it's a multiplayer, sort of live service adjacent game that just launched from Remedy with 5 central missions. As is the case with almost all conversation around games, this description is mostly accurate, but also missing quite a lot of what makes this specific game the experience it is. After playing it quite a lot over the last few days and getting just shy of the Platinum Trophy, I can say FBC Firebreak is a game I want to see take more risks going forward. It's something I want to see more time put into in order to refine and expand it, and this is something done when a game actually has a player base, yet I can't actually really recommend you play it. Weird, I know, but weirdness is sort of the expected outcome for Remedy, and boy does Firebreak feel like a Remedy game in its own twisted way. Here's what happened when I played Firebreak for myself. But first, I've recently hit 1700 subscribers, which feels phenomenal to say. If you like this video or just want to contribute to encouraging me to put my spin on the latest games and art generally, I'd really appreciate another subscriber. I've set myself a pretty lofty goal of getting to 2000 subscribers this year, which would be wonderful, especially considering it's double the original goal I set myself at the start of the year. We've flown past expectations, and it's really helped relight my passion to see this channel grow. With that out of the way, the very start of FBC Firebreak is not good, to put it lightly. It's so not good that the first set of patch notes since launch, version 1.2, says, quote-unquote, the game's first hours do not provide a great experience. In fairness to the team, Remedy seems to actually understand what the problems are here. Systems are poorly explained, like the mission structure, the role certain kits play, and even some basic mechanics. You spot this playing with random players. A lot of players don't understand their role or what their kit does. The fix kit comes with a wrench to quickly repair machinery and make turrets occasionally. The jump kit allows you to fire electricity into parts, as well as being able to place a boombox for distractions or do a big jump. The splash kit in turn can fire water to extinguish flames or remove some status effects. The fix kit is sort of a strategist, the splash kit is more support focused, and jump kit is a bit quicker, though none of the roles place you directly into an archetype. All three can use the same array of weaponry, so they play similarly. This, I think, contributes to co-op players just running and gunning through it. However, this isn't the only place the opening hours fall a tad short. The first few hours are a tutorial, yet not named as such. Set in Remedy's universe, FBC Firebreak follows the events of Control, and you play a role in a team sent to clear out anomalous zones. These zones are effectively 5 mission types, and each mission focuses on a unique status effect. These missions are split into 3 clearance levels, with clearance level 1 sending you through one area and clearance level 3 sending you through 3. These clearance levels not only unlock in a linear fashion, with you having to do level 1 to access level 2 and do level 2 to access level 3, but they also progress in an incremental way. Effectively, doing clearance level 3 takes you through the first and second clearance levels before landing on the last. Level 3 is, as a result, the longest, most complicated, and most difficult. So when I say there are 5 missions, that's technically true, but the mission you play at clearance level 1 will be significantly shorter and easier than level 3. Some level 1 missions can be sped through in just a few minutes, but clearance level 3 missions take you tens of minutes and maybe up to an hour with modifiers, and yeah, we'll get into that in a little bit. The missions are unique in fairness. Each of them have their own quirks and come with unique visuals and play meaningfully into the world Remedy created with Control. Taking deep influence from the likes of SCP Foundation, you feel like a grunt running through and locking down areas until something more permanent comes along. On the game's harder difficulties, the game does a good job at giving each kit something to do. I didn't feel like one was significantly overpowered, though the water kit is noticeably better for a bit of a selfish player, as you can fix most of your own status effects on the go. In each mission, you are given a central gimmick that you will be tackling. One has a pink goo that when it spreads to you can explode when hit, which can cause an instant down. Another has you lumber through a furnace that periodically heats up and can burn you alive. Another is just a handful of office spaces covered in sticky notes, which, when they overwhelm you, spawn a creature made of sticky notes that can overpower your crew if you're not paying enough attention. Each of these are central obstacles you have to overcome while facing normal enemies. Your reprieve is your allies, and space where you can shower, which removes status effects and heals you, alongside an armory to pick up ammo, grenades, and special items. Despite its SCP influences, I should note Control never feels derivative. As well as having an engrossing story, Control's imagery and aesthetic is iconic. the brutalist architecture, the way it plays with light, the bodies hanging from the air. However, where Control is a tapestry, Firebreak's more personal first-person lens blurs that somewhat. The individual blocks of worker cubicles and bathrooms are at their best from a slight distance and abstracted. The dreamlike nature of Control's narrative feels driven by a world that is itself quite alienating. Where Control gives you a sense of grandiosity from looking at the painting as a whole, Firebreak feels like it focuses on a single stroke, and it makes that engaging color palette and aesthetic feel a bit flat. I wish that Firebreak felt like it was building on that world a little more in regards to its maps. It feels like they aren't all that customized for the new perspective, which does fit tonally into what Control is doing, but it doesn't need to hold all that strong a grip to what we saw 6 years ago to faithfully contribute to Remedy's universe. It feels like a brave step in a lot of ways, yet also oddly not. Control's perspective and aesthetic to Firebreak is like comparing the majesty of looking over a mountain to staring at an individual rock. Both can be just as evocative, but here, where the price is your admission fee to get up the mountain, I do feel a little saddened we don't even get a peek of that wider world from the top of the mountain before I'm ushered back down to the base. And we do have Control 2 on the way, but it's hard to believe Firebreak could really stand out without being so closely attached to Control's identity. Normally I tend to stay away from price analysis too much in my videos, and this is for a few reasons. Prices change consistently and are one of the most transient elements of engaging with games. They fluctuate quite a bit, and when I say something isn't worth its asking cost, that's sort of begging to age weirdly. As well as this, subscription models like Game Pass and PS Plus have devalued somewhat what it means to be full price. If I'm talking about the value of Firebreak, a $40 game that also launched on both Game Pass and PS Plus, do I talk about pricing relative to those models, or what you will expect to pay full price? How about what you can reasonably expect to pay 6 months from now, or even next month? However, where I think price analysis is relevant is in what it says about the intent and scope of the game. Rumours of the likes of GTA 6 potentially making its way up to the $100 mark is a declaration of the size of the team, but also the millions of dollars that go into marketing, and in a sense the cost of a game is its own form of marketing. Take Clair Obscura Expedition 33 as an example. It was cheaper than full-priced RPGs at launch, though only by a little bit. However, that $20 or so you saved played into the grander narrative here, one that puts Clair Obscura as the David and every other RPG from big budget studios as Goliath. The reason why the comparably smaller team is talked about so much is because it's a defiance to what AAA represents in the cultural sphere. I think Firebreak's price, being $40, puts it in a bit of an awkward position, especially when it comes to comparable multiplayer-focused co-op games. It's not hard right now to find plenty of great online experiences and ones that are more fleshed out. With Firebreak, you are paying that cash for 5 missions. That is 5 missions with an asterisk, and there's clearly one more on the job board, but 5 missions nonetheless. Of course, it's not the mere notion of 5 missions that is the problem, but how that plays into the broader gameplay loop. You have a player level, a kit level, and assets and folders and briefcases. The player level unlocks the ability to purchase new perks with those collected assets, and you also get unique resources in each mission corresponding to the type of level you've taken on. These are only really relevant if you'd like to upgrade perks, but resource type doesn't correspond to perk type. This means you need to play all the different levels to kit out your character and get the best perks. If you need more achromatic sand, you have to do a specific mission until you have enough. However, there's one more twist here. You only unlock the level-specific resources by enabling Corruption, which can be only activated on clearance level 3. Corruption not only randomizes the locations of showers and armories in each section of the mission, but also spawns in anomalies that give you unique challenges. This could mean a traffic light following you that hurts you if you move when it's red, or a duck that is really insistent on following you everywhere. These are destroyed with a specific and relatively rare gun you find in missions, and this gun has limited ammo, so the best bet is often to sprint to take out an anomaly, then bunker down and finish off enemies spawning, continue your usual challenge, then bunker down once more for every subsequent time enemies spawn. Corruption does offer quite a bit to change up levels. It's not identical each time, and often forces you to adapt on the fly and change how you might play. The drum anomaly, for instance, is absolutely killer as it speeds up enemies. This not only makes them move faster, but hit faster too, and you can get absolutely shredded by hits, bullets, and grenades if you aren't careful. As well as using assets to buy perks, you can use them to advance a track to unlock new weaponry, upgrade already earned weaponry, or get new cosmetics. In the middle of playing the game, Remedy put out a new patch that increased the asset cost of these items, split tracks into two separate tabs, one for important gameplay upgrades and one for cosmetics, but also made assets easier to find and more abundant. Within 10 or so hours, I had all the weapons I wanted to max level and many perks, but didn't actually commit all that much to other perks as a maxed out kit only gets 10 slots. To make your perk stronger, you not only need to upgrade it, but also use a perk slot for each level of that perk you want. This means sharing a perk with teammates, which is the third and final level of a perk, takes up 3 slots. I mentioned that Firebreak is live service adjacent, and that's because it's a multiplayer game that does seem to have some plans to introduce events to keep people playing, as well as new classes and jobs to do. However, there's no battle pass, and you aren't encouraged to sign in every day to get experience. You just hop in, do a mission, hop out. In its own way, this is almost refreshing. I think Firebreak is actually much better off not being a live service and just instead adopting a few of the things that many multiplayer games have nowadays. It's also a decent bit better once you get over that first hump, though drops off quite quickly just as it starts. There's definitely part of me that applauds Remedy making a game I can't imagine was hugely wanted or even expected before launch, and giving it a bit of a throwback feeling to those multiplayer modes attached to games of the 2000s. It existing at all feels strange and kind of funny. There's a real sense of comedy to the game itself too. Friendly fire is always on, and effects like fire will travel, which means you can set an enemy alight, it can run towards a teammate, step on a puddle of oil, and then this can set your teammate on fire. There's a bit of a rule of cool thing too, with weaponry being quite heavy in its own way, but taking enemies down very quickly. Enemies often run at you as a horde, so on those harder difficulties you find yourself clogging up doorways and just firing until they stop running. And this all builds me towards one place. I have almost maxed out the game and I'm just 2 trophies off the platinum, and I already feel like I've played a few more hours than I ever wanted to. I think the gameplay is fairly solid, and on harder difficulties everything is quite hectic and learning your kit can be quite satisfying. There's a loop here that works and doesn't feel ill-considered. Firebreak as a multiplayer add-on to Remedy's universe actually works for me in concept. Tonally it's consistent, being both kinda dark and really silly, and I enjoyed part of peeling back levels and getting new gear. After getting over the hump of the first hour, there's definitely part of me that enjoyed understanding levels like a mini version of Easter egg hunts in Call of Duty Zombies. There's a certain logic to the objectives given to you, and it does encourage you to work with teammates, throwing cargo to each other, or just going for a revive. However, I can't help but feel like Firebreak is missing some of what the game should have, and even some of the missions that are there can bore. I found myself really only reaching for the same 2 after a while. I don't just think Firebreak feels like it's missing something in the gameplay sense though. I mean that I wanted it to push the boat out more. I wish it could have tried to adapt its own story or other areas that feel entirely unique, but it doesn't really do that. When I said at the start I wanted the game to continue, but I can't really recommend it, this is why I feel that way. I think if Firebreak were an early access game with roadmaps and content promises, I would feel much more positively about it. It does have a roadmap, but not really a guarantee that it will be fulfilled. Early access can run away with the cash too, but there's an expectation to continue with development on a base level, and those standards aren't applied to full releases as much. And there are these moments where you're about to be overrun, hammering away at machinery and putting out fires that give me that feeling of watching the kitchen burn on Overcooked, except with a stranger all lit through pings of showers and the promise of an oncoming elevator. There's a certain something here that makes me feel like Firebreak isn't soulless. It has heart, it has a brain, it just doesn't quite have that courage Remedy really feels known for. And those are my thoughts right now on Firebreak. Well, I walked away from the mic there, so apologies if that went a little quiet. Yeah, strange one. I played this on PS Plus. Oh, if you're wondering what the trophies I'm missing are, one for finishing out the water kit, which I think is level 7 or 8, so I have like another 1 or 2 levels left on that. And the last one was the level 6 clearance trophy without anyone going down, which is you do a thing on level 3 clearance on extreme with 3 corruption, I think is how that works. Though thinking about it, I wonder if you could do it on easier mode. I'll have to check in on that. Either way, I think I did before. My main problem there is that getting people to cooperate online is really tough. So for a while I would start solo, hope people would hop in, and people would die immediately. I would wait until there are like big level players in my lobby and they would die as well, which again I'm not like blaming them for because it's a casual game. I don't know if they're also going for that trophy, so Like, there are times where I died without really thinking about it in earlier runs because I didn't even know people were going for that trophy. That was a problem. But also then I tried it solo, and that was also tough because on those harder difficulties you just have tens or hundreds of enemies, and you start to run low on ammo, and you can restore it at the armory, but not quite quick enough. There's just too much going on for me to have comfortably completed on extreme level 3 with 3 corruption, especially with like the drum anomaly. I'm ranting, but yes, that was the one I'm missing. I might still try and get it because I like the idea of saying, yeah, I got the trophy. I've really tried to give this game its sort of due diligence, and this is how I feel. Either way, thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing and all those things. Thank you for commenting. If there's something you think I should check out, let me know. I think next on the docket will be Tainted Grail. I've had that script written for about a week or two, but then Splitgate got in the way because I felt like I had something to say on it. So that 30-minute video is out there now if you want to go and watch that. I'm quite proud of it. I think I put in a lot of work and I think it's quite good. Either way, sorry, yes, subscribing would be lovely. Thank you.